He laughed in my face for being unemployed, calling me lazy and worthless. Little did he know, I was about to become his nightmare. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Leora Hale. I had always worked hard, but life had other plans. After losing my job, I struggled to make ends meet. I was trying to figure out my next step when Evan Trent, my ex-boyfriend, found out. He didn't just notice my situation, he mocked it. Every word he said cut deeper than I expected. He laughed at me in front of friends, called me hopeless, and acted like my life had no value. Evan wasn't just cruel, he was arrogant. He seemed proud of pointing out my failures, as if my misfortune was his entertainment. Seeing him so dismissive, I felt angry and small at the same time. I couldn't understand how someone I had trusted could become so cruel. His friends joined in, smirking and whispering jokes at my expense. I wanted to disappear, but a part of me burned with determination instead. Despite the hurt, I refused to give up. I started quietly planning my next move, focusing on what I could control. I knew I had skills, and I knew I could rebuild. I reminded myself that this wasn't the end, it was just the beginning of something bigger. I promised myself that one day, I would show Evan that he had underestimated me, and that his arrogance would be his downfall. Before Evan's mockery, my life had been full of hard work and sacrifice. I juggled multiple part-time jobs just to pay bills and keep moving forward. Some days I barely slept, rushing from one shift to another, always trying to learn, grow, and prove myself. Yet, despite all my effort, Evan never noticed. He treated my struggles like a joke, laughing at me when I mentioned my long days or small victories. The worst moment came when I learned he had taken some of my old work ideas and shared them at a friend's party, twisting them into something funny. He laughed while others clapped, pretending it was clever, while I felt invisible. All my late nights and careful planning reduced to a punchline. I hadn't expected betrayal from someone I trusted, someone I once thought supported me. It wasn't just the stolen ideas, it was the disregard for everything I had worked for. The way he and his friends sneered at my ambitions, as if I wasn't capable of success, left a mark I couldn't ignore. I felt underestimated in every way, humiliated by their arrogance, and powerless to stop it at the time. Even in that pain, a spark of determination started to grow. I realized that if they could treat me like nothing, I had a reason to prove them wrong. Their laughter became fuel, a reminder that I had to rise above their contempt. I promised myself that I would one day show them the value of my work, my vision, and my strength. I would turn every insult and betrayal into motivation, quietly preparing for the moment when everything would change. Everything changed the day I received a letter from my late aunt. I had barely remembered her, but she left me her small business, a boutique tech firm called Hale Innovations. At first, I was overwhelmed. I didn't know much about running a company, but I saw an opportunity. This was a chance to take control of my life and build something lasting, something that no one could take away from me. I started working quietly, learning every detail about the business. I recruited a small team of talented, loyal people who shared my vision. Together, we began improving products, refining strategies, and slowly gaining attention in the industry. It felt like planting seeds in soil that had been ignored for years, each small success giving me hope and confidence. While I focused on growth, I discovered a subtle truth that made my pulse quicken. Evan and his friends were working nearby in the same field. They had no idea I was stepping into this world, no idea that one day, our paths would collide in ways neither of us could imagine. The thought of them being so close yet unaware added a quiet tension. I kept my progress hidden, careful not to draw attention. Each new hire, every product update, and every meeting strengthened our position, slowly building a foundation that would one day give me the upper hand. I felt a mix of excitement and caution. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I could finally rise on my own terms. The turning point wasn't just inheriting a business, it was realizing I had a path to proving myself, and maybe, just maybe, turning past pain into a chance for something greater. Once I took control of Hale Innovations, I poured every ounce of energy into it. I studied business strategies late into the night, reading books, analyzing markets, and figuring out ways to grow. I attended conferences, met new people, and slowly built a network that opened doors I hadn't imagined before. Each day felt like climbing a mountain, exhausting but necessary to reach the peak. My personal life disappeared. I skipped social events, ignored distractions, and spent nights in the office while the city slept. Sometimes I felt lonely, the weight of responsibility pressing down on me. But I reminded myself why I was doing this. Each small success, every satisfied client, and every talented person joining our team reinforced my determination. I couldn't afford to give up, not now. Meanwhile, Evan remained the same. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he still worked the same dead-end job, making jokes at my expense whenever he remembered. He had not grown, not changed, still mocking the version of me he thought he had broken. The contrast between us became sharper with every step I took. Where I sacrificed and built, he wasted and remained stagnant. The unfairness of the past fueled me further, transforming anger into motivation. I learned to take pride in my hard work. Watching Hale Innovations slowly expand, even in small ways, reminded me that I was capable of far more than anyone had credited me for. The feeling of quiet power grew inside me, an understanding that my life was no longer defined by his mockery or the judgment of others. I was creating my own path, and every late night, every sacrifice, brought me closer to the moment when my determination would become undeniable. I wasn't prepared for what happened at the industry conference. While reviewing potential partners for Hale Innovations, I spotted familiar faces across the room, Evan, along with two of his friends, Cole and Finn. They were working for a company my firm was now partnering with, a fact I hadn't expected. My stomach tightened as I watched them interact, laughing and exchanging ideas, completely unaware of my presence. The worst moment came when I overheard them talking about me. Evan smirked, making a joke at my expense, and Cole and Finn joined in, repeating the same old insults about my past failures. Their laughter cut deeper than I imagined, stirring memories I thought I had buried. I felt the familiar sting of betrayal, realizing that even now, they had no respect for me, no recognition of how far I had come. Anger bubbled up, sharp and hot, but I forced myself to remain composed. I couldn't let them see the effect they still had over me. Instead, I focused on the opportunity hidden in the moment. Seeing them so careless, so arrogant, reminded me of the gap between us now. I had grown, learned, and built something meaningful, while they remained unaware of my progress. As I watched them joke and underestimate me, a plan began to form in my mind. I would use this chance to turn the tables, to make them face consequences for their arrogance and betrayal. The fire in me grew quietly, transforming pain into strategy. What they saw as a moment of superiority would soon become the start of their downfall, and I was determined to make it precise, calculated, and unforgettable. After that conference, I knew I needed to understand the company Evan and his friends worked for. I began reviewing everything public about their structure, contracts, and leadership. It didn't take long to notice how poorly the place was run. Their management was careless, paperwork was often incomplete, and key decisions were made without proper checks. The more I studied them, the clearer it became that their organization depended on appearance rather than real discipline. Wanting deeper insight, I reached out to someone inside their firm who had already expressed frustration about the lack of order. They agreed to share information as long as everything stayed within legal boundaries. Through them, I learned exactly where the company failed, missed deadlines, weak communication, and internal conflict that leadership ignored. Every detail painted a picture of a business slipping out of control, even though they pretended everything was fine on the surface. As I gathered more knowledge, I felt a shift inside me. I wasn't just reacting to old wounds anymore. I was preparing something precise and controlled. Having access to accurate inside reports gave me leverage, but I kept my emotions steady. No one at Hale Innovations knew the full story yet, and certainly no one on Evan's side suspected anything. I moved carefully, making sure each step pushed me closer to the advantage I needed. The suspense within me grew, not from fear but from anticipation. I finally held information that could change everything, and I wasn't rushing. I wanted the moment to be right, and I wanted the impact to be undeniable. Remaining calm allowed me to see every angle clearly. I knew a time was coming when all of this groundwork would give me the upper hand, and I was ready to use it. I created a project designed to involve a rival company, carefully structuring it so Evan, Cole, and Finn would be in charge of major responsibilities. On the surface, it seemed like a normal collaboration, agreements signed, timelines set, and everyone working toward shared goals. They had no idea that every step had been planned with precision to give me control. During meetings, I presented myself as cooperative, even generous. I praised their ideas, offered guidance, and made it clear that I wanted the partnership to succeed. They accepted my demeanor without suspicion, believing I was just being polite. Inside, I smiled quietly. Every compliment and nod masked my real intent, making it impossible for them to guess that I held all the strings. As the project progressed, I watched them confidently take the lead, unaware that I had positioned myself to observe every mistake, every weak decision. It was exhilarating to stay in the background, collecting evidence without their knowledge. The more they underestimated me, the more satisfying it became. In those moments, I allowed myself a private thought. I could almost feel the weight of past humiliation lifting. All the times I had been mocked, belittled, or ignored now fueled a careful plan that they couldn't see coming. It was a quiet thrill, knowing I had turned the tables while remaining unnoticed. Every interaction reinforced my sense of control. I kept my expression neutral, my words measured, and my actions calculated. Behind the calm exterior, I was preparing for the moment when all the patience, planning, and restraint would pay off. I knew the satisfaction of unseen strategy was far greater than any immediate confrontation. I was ready for the perfect moment to reveal what I had been building. During routine meetings, Evan and his friends openly underestimated me. They joked about my abilities, dismissing suggestions I made and bragging about how easy it was to outsmart me. Their arrogance filled the room, giving me the perfect cover to act. I began carefully undermining their work without drawing attention. Small adjustments here, gentle corrections there, nothing obvious enough for them to notice, but enough to create tiny cracks in their projects. I documented every misstep, noting errors in reports, missed deadlines, and overlooked contract obligations. Each record added to the growing pile of proof that would later show how reckless and careless they had been. The tension built with every meeting. I kept my expression neutral, pretending to stay focused on collaboration while quietly observing every move. They never suspected that their overconfidence was being recorded and catalogued, or that their bragging would later be used against them. Every minor sabotage was deliberate. I made subtle suggestions that led to mistakes, ensured that miscommunications happened at key moments, and guided situations so their flaws would naturally emerge. It was a slow, careful process, like setting traps in a maze. Even as I maintained a polite demeanor, my mind was racing. Each step was deliberate, each document saved, each error noted. The knowledge that my planning was invisible to them made me feel empowered. What they thought was incompetence on my part was actually preparation, and every unnoticed slip made the upcoming reveal sharper, more undeniable. By the time the project reached critical stages, the foundation was set. Every small failure, every overlooked detail, all pointed to a clear pattern. I was ready, and the moment when their arrogance would finally collide with the truth was approaching. As the project unfolded, I made a conscious effort to connect with the team that believed in me. I listened to their ideas, supported their efforts, and recognized their contributions openly. They responded with trust and loyalty, often going the extra mile because they felt valued. In contrast, Evan and his friends treated everyone as inferior, dismissing suggestions and demanding attention without earning respect. The difference couldn't have been clearer. I often found myself reflecting on the past, remembering how Evan laughed at my struggles and how his friends joined in, making me feel small. Those memories stirred a quiet determination, a satisfaction that grew with every successful step we took. I realized that the more they underestimated me, the more powerful my position became. Working alongside the staff who respected me reinforced the sense that I was on the right path. I could see them thriving under encouragement, their confidence increasing, while Evan remained oblivious to the growing strength of the team he thought he could impress. Every time I witnessed his arrogance clash with their competence, a slow sense of vindication settled in. It was subtle, almost invisible to outsiders, but I could feel it, a quiet anticipation building in the background. I reminded myself that revenge isn't about immediate confrontation. It's about careful timing, patience, and letting the pieces fall into place. Every interaction, every decision, and every success by my side was part of the long build-up. I began to enjoy the process in a way I hadn't expected. Seeing the contrast, feeling the tension, and knowing the moment of reckoning was approaching created a sense of controlled excitement. The slow burn of revenge was real, and I knew the day when it would finally ignite was drawing closer with every calculated move. I scheduled a private meeting, framing it as a routine review for potential promotions. Evan and his friends arrived confident, expecting praise and recognition for their efforts. They had no reason to suspect that the tone of the meeting would shift entirely. Once everyone was seated, I calmly explained my role in the partnership. I revealed that I held a majority stake, giving me full authority over decisions and personnel. I detailed my involvement in planning, operations, and strategic direction, showing them that I wasn't just a participant, I was in control. The reaction was immediate. Evan's face turned pale, and his usual smug smile vanished. Cole and Finn exchanged confused glances, trying to process what they were hearing. Their disbelief filled the room, and I allowed a quiet pause, letting the weight of the revelation settle. Watching them struggle to comprehend their situation gave me a deep, silent satisfaction. I continued to explain that their repeated mistakes, poor judgment, and lack of accountability had been documented thoroughly. Each error, each missed deadline, and each act of carelessness had been carefully noted, creating an undeniable record. I emphasized that my decision wasn't personal, it was based entirely on evidence. As I spoke, I felt a strange mix of calm and triumph. Years of mockery, humiliation, and underestimation had led to this precise moment. I wasn't just asserting authority, I was reclaiming respect and proving that their arrogance had blinded them to reality. By the time the meeting ended, the shift in power was unmistakable. Evan, Cole, and Finn left stunned, unable to respond, while I felt the quiet thrill of vindication. For the first time, the balance had shifted completely, and I was the one standing in control. Once the reality of my authority sank in, I delivered the decision. Evan, Cole, and Finn were terminated immediately. I cited specific examples of negligence, missed responsibilities, and breaches of trust, leaving no room for argument. Every detail had been documented carefully, ensuring that my action was fully supported and impossible to contest. I went further, activating legal protections and implementing clawbacks for any bonuses or benefits they had received unfairly. Nothing would allow them to walk away with undeserved rewards. The system was precise, leaving no loopholes or chance for escape. This wasn't about cruelty, it was about holding them accountable for years of arrogance and carelessness. Watching them process the reality of the situation was deeply satisfying. Their confident smirks vanished, replaced by disbelief, panic, and humiliation. For once, the power dynamic had shifted entirely. The same men who once ridiculed me, treating my struggles as a joke, now faced the consequences of underestimating me. I noticed the tension in the room, the awkward stammering, and the futile attempts to justify themselves. Every excuse they might have prepared dissolved against the weight of clear, documented facts. Their silence mirrored the helplessness I had once felt under their mockery, creating a quiet symmetry between my past pain and their current embarrassment. In that moment, I felt a deep sense of closure. Years of being underestimated, belittled, and dismissed were balanced by this single, decisive act. It wasn't revenge for the sake of revenge, it was reclamation. I had turned every insult, every laugh at my expense, and every moment of disregard into a structured, undeniable outcome. The humiliation they felt was the proof that I had finally rewritten the rules of our interactions. After the firing, the atmosphere at Hale Innovations shifted completely. My team gathered around, expressing admiration for the way I handled everything. They praised my decisiveness, fairness, and the care I showed in guiding them. It was the first time I felt truly seen, not for who I was before, but for the person I had become. Their respect reminded me why every struggle, every sleepless night, and every sacrifice had been worth it. I walked through the office feeling a sense of pride I had never known. The small victories we achieved together now felt monumental. My leadership had been tested, and the results were undeniable. The quiet satisfaction of knowing I had built a team that believed in me, and not in Evan or his arrogance, was overwhelming. Amid this success, Evan reached out. He sent messages and made calls, attempting to reconcile or explain himself. I listened briefly and then chose to remain firm. I recognized that he was trying to return to a situation he had underestimated, hoping for a second chance. But I had grown beyond needing validation from someone who once mocked me. Turning him down was easier than I expected. I felt a clarity and strength that had been absent in the past. Refusing him wasn't just about pride, it was a statement of independence. I had proven that my worth wasn't tied to his approval, and I no longer needed his recognition to feel complete. The day ended with quiet celebrations and smiles from the people who truly mattered. I realized that triumph wasn't about revenge alone, it was about creating a life where respect and trust mattered more than fear or mockery. For the first time, I felt fully acknowledged, capable, and free to continue building a future on my own terms. With Evan and his friends out of the picture, I focused entirely on expanding Hale Innovations. The company was growing faster than I had imagined, and I made it a point to mentor young women entering tech. Sharing my experience, guiding them through challenges, and watching them succeed brought a new sense of purpose. It felt meaningful to help others avoid the mistakes I had endured and to encourage confidence where self-doubt might have otherwise taken hold. Every day, I felt stronger and more capable. The years of struggle, mockery, and betrayal had shaped me into someone resilient and determined. I no longer allowed the opinions of others to define my worth. Instead, I measured myself by what I created, the people I supported, and the integrity I maintained. The past no longer held me back, it had taught me lessons that became the foundation for everything I achieved. I reflected on the journey, the sleepless nights, the careful planning, the small victories that built toward the big one. Each step had prepared me for this moment, and now, the satisfaction was deeper than I ever imagined. The humiliation I once felt had been replaced by pride, and the doubt that lingered had been replaced by confidence. In quiet moments, I reminded myself of the transformation. The person who had been mocked, belittled, and underestimated had grown into a leader who commanded respect. The pain had become fuel, and the setbacks had become lessons. Looking forward, I felt a sense of freedom and excitement. He mocked me, I rose above, and now I write my own story. Every decision, every achievement, every new connection was a chapter authored by me alone. The future was mine, defined not by anyone else, but by my own strength, vision, and resilience.